Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I want to share a conversation I had earlier today with a couple of people, and the topic was that I was rather the point that I was trying to make to this group of people was that we have all been conditioned to accept slavery, and it does not matter what color we are or what. We have all been conditioned over thousands of years, right? Not just the last 20, 30, 50, whatever years. We have all been conditioned over thousands of years to accept slavery. Okay, don't just look at the history, the last 200 years of American history, and say, "Ha." Look at 5,000 years of history. Okay, so human history is 5,000 years of slavery. Okay, um, and if you go back, let's say some 2, 3, 4,000 years um, before, basically the free people had, been bred out of humanity, right? Before that, you still had people in society that were die-hard, free-loving people. Okay, and that doesn't include any of us. Okay, I'll explain to you guys why. If somebody gave you a choice, or me a choice for that matter, okay, would you be willing to become a slave, or would you die fighting to preserve your freedom? Okay, everybody's gonna say, yeah, we're gonna take choice B. We're all gonna die fighting for freedom. Okay, I see. Now, let me give you this question. Okay, would you allow your children, your small children who are incapable of fighting, right? Let's say 5, 6, 7 years old, right? Would you allow them to be taken to be taken into slavery, or would you kill them yourself to prevent them from becoming slaves? Okay, and I think that most of us, probably including myself, okay, in fact, most definitely including myself, would not do that. Right? We wouldn't. I would not be willing to kill my kids to prevent them from becoming slaves. I would probably say, hey, you know what? Let them be taken, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to free them, right? Or that's kind of how I would end up justifying it, right? But if you went back some, let's say, 2, 3 thousand years, and you'd have to go back 2, 3 thousand years because there's basically that breed of humans has pretty much been extinguished. But if you went back 2 or 3 thousand years and you found a true free loving warrior and you asked them that question, right? Would you allow your kids to be taken into slavery? They wouldn't even let you finish the sentence, right? They would say, no, I would kill them myself before I would let them take, before I would take them into slavery. Okay, and there's many there's at least a few historical references that I have read over the years. I can't remember offhand, but basically when the city was about to be taken, basically the inhabitants of a city would kill their kids and their women before they would allow them to be taken as slaves, because that's what happens when you lose a war in the ancient world, right? In the ancient world, the difference between a free person and a slave is who won or lost the last battle. Okay, that's what that came down to. It didn't matter what color you were. It didn't None of that mattered. Okay, if you win the war, you get to take slaves. If you lose the war, you become a slave, and they're really not interested in you, especially if you've grown up knowing freedom. Right, you're not the one that they want. They're gonna kill you. Right. What they really want is the small kids, um, because they're not accustomed to freedom. So if, they don't want the infants. The infants they would just let die of exposure. They would throw them over the walls, right? They don't want the infants because that's too much trouble to raise. What they want is, let's say, like the 5 to maybe 8 year olds, right? Because they're old enough where they're almost like in a couple of years they're gonna be of working age, right? But they're not so small that you have to invest a lot of time and effort to actually raise them, right? And they're not, in that 5 to 8 year range, you know, they're not old enough to have started developing ideas of freedom. Because now with the 10-year-olds, now if they've been, if they're 10 years old and they know freedom, it's harder to make them into slaves. Not impossible, but it's still, as they get older, it gets harder. So that 5 to 8 year old 5 to 9-year-old, that's kind of like the sweet spot for taking slaves in the ancient worlds. You don't want adults. Adults, they already know freedom. The adults will die fighting to try and free themselves or free their family. All right. So those you just execute. You don't take those. You take the kids in that age. So knowing this, if your city is about to taken, right? If you know that you've got no chance of winning, your city is surrounded, they're coming over the walls. In the ancient world, that's what you did. To prevent your kids from becoming slaves. Okay. So fast forward today, how many of us would be willing to do that? Not too many. And I have to be honest, right? This is where it comes down to know thyself, right? Know yourself. What would you be willing to do? How far would you go? And most of us would not go that far, right? So the point here is that over thousands of years, we've been bred to accept slavery. Okay, that's where we're at. Because here's the thing: at one point time or another, 90 to 95% of the population on the planet was pretty much enslaved. Now there were different forms of slavery. There was serfdom, where you're tied to the land. The landlord could do anything they wanted to do with you. Okay, so you couldn't leave the land, right? They could work you, take everything from you. So practically, they can make whatever laws they wanted to, right? You can make a law saying that you had to work 7 days a week. They can make a law saying that you had to give your daughter up to them. They can make, the landlord, right, could make any laws that he wanted. That's why they call him the Lord. So serfdom was just another form of slavery. So over thousands of years, right, the section of the population that was willing to take that stand, no, I won't let you take my kids into slavery, I'll kill them myself, they all died off. Okay, all of us that are alive today and have survived are basically the children of slaves, okay, one way or another, right? And slavery existed all over the world. So we're all the children of slaves. We've all been kind of bred to accept authority, all right? And that's just what it is. I mean, just be aware of the situation. You might be willing to die fighting for freedom, but you wouldn't kill your kids to prevent them from becoming slaves. So drop some comments below if you disagree with me, but by all means, I don't, this is really my opinion. This is my opinion. If you have a different opinion, drop it below in the comments. If you're not a member of the channel, subscribe. Find me on Odysee, which is an uncensored platform. My channel name over there is Pocono Tactical, and Odysee is spelled ODYSEE.com. So that's how you find that. So thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon.